Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds. Today, a species profile about one of America's most common, most well-known, and but also sometimes misunderstood birds, the American robin. First off, what is a robin? Well, they're a member of the thrush family, and their song, their fluty, resonating, beautiful songs, put them into those other birds that you may be aware of, like the wood thrush and the hermit thrush, bluebirds. When they sing, you can really tell that thrush quality about them. They are sexually dimorphic in that the males are darker in appearance. So they're deep, richer orange red on their breast and darker on their back. One of my nicknames for them is banana beak because of that bright yellow bill of theirs. So the females have to sit on the egg, so they're duller in coloration overall than the males are. So they are sexually dimorphic, and they are very widespread. The map shows that they are spread all across the continent, and up in the northern tier, the red color, that of course is during the nesting season, because that area gets covered in snow, and they do leave those areas and move south. The purple area all across the middle part of that map is all year round. So while their numbers get elevated in the central part of the country by those birds coming down during the winter months, the ones that are here pretty much stay in the area all year round. They may move a little bit. They're considered more short distance migrators most of the time. And then the light blue area at the bottom is just where they can only be found really in winter. So where are we right now with American robins? Well, we're getting to the tail end of the nesting season. Robins are they're great nesters in that they can build their nest on really flat surfaces. Yes, they are going to be in forks of trees and in or heavy branches and things like that. But they also nest famously on platforms. This is a nesting shelf, as we call it, and they'll nest on those. We had one nest on our windowsill up on the second floor of our old house, and the daughter came home every day from school, and she peeled back the curtain, and she could peek on them without disturbing them and check on the eggs and everything. So yes, they build their nest, and their nest are grass, but they build the foundation of it with mud, and so it really does set up very stout. They're very stout nest, and then they lay. Oh, the famously robin blue eggs. I know that. I remember looking at paint colors one time, and robin blue, of course, was one of the paint colors available. But they usually lay 3 to 5 eggs in the nest, and they, traditional incubation, like a lot of songbirds, 2 weeks to hatch the eggs, and then 2 weeks for them to fly. Now, one of the sad things about robin's nest is that quite often the nest is not big enough for those growing babies. So quite often when the babies get large enough, one or more of them might actually get pushed out before it's ready to fly. And we find those young birds down on the ground. And this is a juvenile robin, an nestling robin that is fledged. And you can see the spots on the chest. That very much makes them look like bluebird babies if you have bluebird babies. But you can see the lack of overall color. That's more camouflage. But they're hopping around on the ground, and the parents are still feeding them. We get a lot of calls on this, and people want to rescue them, but the best thing to do is let the parents take care of them. The real danger for them on the ground, of course, is going to be predators, cats and dogs famously, but others as well. So they count on their camouflage and mom and dad to keep feeding them until they get enough strength build up in their muscles to be able to fly. And it's very common. A lot of young robins don't make it, and that's just part of having 3 nests a year and producing more. So the chance that some will survive, and it's like a lot of wildlife. If they can survive those first 2 to 3 months of their life, they might actually live to 6, 7, or 8 years old. But a lot of them do die in that first year, so that's kind of sad. But that's the way nature is. But I think the part that gets confusing for folks is because all summer, and it's from spring and all through the summer months, they're used to seeing those robins out in their lawns running around and bringing up a worm out of the grass and eating it. And so they're highly visible during the nesting season, especially in spring. And of course, they sing their beautiful songs. They're cheery, cheerio, cheery, cheerio. And I use the Sibley's Bird app to play the songs for you. So here's the song, classic song. Cheerio, cheerio. And then another classic sound you hear from them is I was in my yard one day in the front yard, and I heard this whinny call, and it was a robin coming down the road toward my house, and it flew right past me and went under my truck. And right behind it was a sharp-shinned hawk following it, and it saw me, and it finally veered off. But this is that whinny call you'll hear. Very commonly heard. One of the most common backyard birds, like I say, and people are used to those calls and hearing that. But when the confusion comes in about American robins is when people think they disappear and they migrate south. Oh, they're gone. They're not going to be back till spring. Well, really, all they're doing in a lot of their range is just shifting habitat. Because once the ground becomes hard, and especially when cold weather sets in, worms and grubs go deeper into the soil, and it's harder for them to get it. So they shift their diet. Now, robins eat a lot of fruit, a lot of berries all year long, but when it comes to the fall and winter times, they eat even more of them. So when it comes to looking for robins in the fall and winter, we find them a lot. I mean, they're always on our Christmas bird counts. It's very uncommon for us to not have any robins in the winter anymore. More and more are overwintering all through the lower 48 states. But it's just the habitat that confuses folks. So I tell the story of leading a bird hike years ago, and we were in the forest in the winter, and the ground was boiling. The forest floor was boiling. The leaves were just moving all over the place. And we were watching it, and it was a flock of robins. These robins were underneath the leaf litter, and they were poking around because there's a lot of insects and worms underneath that leaf litter that are just there where they're available to them. So those robins were working that whole forest. There's probably 40, 50 birds in that flock of robins that were working the forest floor. And of course, the berries up in the trees are going to be feeding on that as well. So yes, they do overwinter in most of their range. So what we think about is, how can we take care of them in the winter months? And that is always remember, they're going to be finding berries, and they're going to be finding insects under the leaf litter. And then on warm days, they'll find bugs that are crawling around, but they need unfrozen water. And if you watch me regularly, I'm always going to talk about water, but they need an unfrozen source of water for them. So bird bath deicers are very, very important to robins and a lot of birds in the winter. Almost all birds in winter, but especially birds in your area, robins will definitely need and take advantage of that. And then food, when it comes to feeding robins, they're not classic bird feeder birds, but they will visit bird feeders. Like many species of birds will see other birds eating at your bird feeders, and they'll go, "Oh, what are you guys getting?" And they'll come over and check it out. Well, they can't crack seeds open, but if you have hulless seeds like sunflower hearts, sunflower kernels, peanut pieces in there, this is my Bluebirds and Friends mix I made years ago, and I have a lot of dried mealworms in there, and also have some suet nuggets in there. All of these can be eaten by robins, and if you feed mealworms for your bluebirds, you know that robins, if they find your mealworms, they're going to eat them, and hell, they can eat a lot of mealworms in a short amount of time. So a lot of times you have to for your bluebirds to get to them, you have to put them in a feeder that has a hole that the bluebirds can get in to get to the mealworms, and the robins can't, because they do eat a lot of it, which is great. We love them, and we really, really want to feed them, and we want them to be part and survive those harsher parts of winter until spring. And then here they come. We hear the songs in the spring, and we see that your lawns are greening up, and the worms are coming to the surface with rain and softening ground from that hard winter and so they're out there picking up those worms. Interestingly enough, the studies showed that they really eat worms earlier in the mornings, and even during the summer months, they eat a lot of fruit in the afternoons. And one study showed that they seem to be able to pick out fruit berries that have insects in them. The American robin, really a great bird. It's one that we take for granted because it is so common a lot of times, but they're fascinating, and they have some interesting habits. So, if he's your harbinger of spring, you hear that bird song, and you know spring is coming. If you like the program, please give us a like, give us a share. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that notification bell, that little bell down there on the symbol when you subscribe, and you'll know when I'm on next. So, until next time, let's talk birds.